Hey everybody. So this next video is going to be discussing muscle fatigue and endurance. So there are going to be parts of this that might make some sense for a lot of you because maybe you are an athlete or you've participated in athletic events and have an understanding of what it feels like to experience some of these things. Or you're able to take what we've discussed in class already and apply it to this section. So that said, muscle fatigue is a progressive weakness and a loss of contractility. So, in other words, your muscles are getting weaker because they're not being able to contract as well. And this could be for a multitude of reasons, right? ATP synthesis can decline. So, if you have less ATP synthesis, less ATP. If there's less ATP, you're not going to be able to maintain the ability of the body's resting membrane potential, and therefore your body's not going to be able to contract. The muscles are not going to be able to contract, not going to be able to get the adequate amount of voltage in order to create an action potential and eventually contract the muscle. Another thing that can happen here is the accumulation of potassium ions within the membrane potential, and this is going to it's going to reduce the membrane potential, and therefore it's going to make it so that the cell is unable to create an action potential and contract the cell. Another thing here that we haven't really talked yet about is the lactic acid. So we know that lactic acid fermentation is a thing, and that lactic acid can accumulate in the body. But when that happens, it'll lower the pH or make the body more acidic of the sarcoplasm, and it's going to impair the actions of the enzymes. So it's one of those things about enzymes is that if you introduce it to acids or bases or heat or something different, it will change the shape of those enzymes, and therefore if you change the shape it'll change their function. So in this case it'll impair them and prevent them from doing their jobs. And then over here it says motor nerve fibers use up all their acetylcholine, and the central nervous system is going to begin to fatigue. So physical endurance is going to depend on the maximum oxygen uptake of the athlete as well as the supply of organic nutrients. In other words, how much oxygen can you get into your tissues and how quickly can you get it into your tissues. Not only that, but how much organic nutrients, how much sugar can you get into your tissues, and how quickly can you get it to your tissues. And then from there, how well can your body, or how quickly and efficiently can your body go through cellular respiration or lactic acid fermentation if it needs to be, right? So that is the idea with fatigue and endurance. A few other factors to consider are oxygen debt, and it sounds exactly like what it is. It is when you are in debt of oxygen. You're lacking oxygen. So oxygen debt is specifically the difference between the resting state of oxygen consumption and the elevated rate following an exercise. So what's the difference between you sitting here right now and how much oxygen you use and how much you're going to use if you are at the height of exercise? Is it a lot? Is it a little bit? Oxygen inhaled after exercise is then used to replace the body's oxygen reservoirs and replenish the phosphagen systems, oxidize lactic acid, so break down the lactic acid, and then serve the now elevated metabolic rates so that your body can continue with its metabolism. Some things to keep in mind when we're talking about strength, this is just one last thing for here, is that when muscle strength is going to depend on a few things. Number one, the muscle size, the arrangement of the fascicles, the size of the active motor units. So if there's more active motor units, it's usually going to be stronger. And then also if you have multiple motor unit summation. So how well is your body able to recruit those multiple motor units, as well as temporal summation. If you have any questions about muscle fatigue and endurance, please feel free to reach out.